In this video, I'm going to be rebuilding the wheels on my Kawasaki Z1 Super Six, fitting the spokes and the tyres, and going out for a little ride on my Yamaha YL1 100cc twin. Before I start to build the wheels, I'll get all the parts onto the bench. The rear hub, the rear inner spokes, the rear outer spokes, the front hub, the front inner spokes, the front outer spokes, and the rims. Then I use a bit of ZX1 extra lube oil to lubricate the threads. This makes the nipples screw on nicely. I'm starting with the rear wheel, so I grip the rear wheel spindle in the vise using soft jaws. Then drop on one of the rear wheel spacers to hold the wheel above the vise. Then when I put the hub on, it's a nice stable base for assembling the spokes. Next, I get some ZX1 spray and spray the nipples and give them a good shake and a rub. This lubricates the internal threads. Note the differences between the spokes. The internal ones are less than 90-degree bends and the external ones are over 90-degree bends. To put in the spokes on the wheel, you need to put all the inner ones in first on both sides. So you put one in one hole, then you miss a hole and put another one in, then miss a hole and put another one in, and continue till all the inner spokes are in. With the top inner spokes in place, the next thing I need to do is put the bottom inner spokes in. So I pick up the batch of spokes and put them in up from underneath, noting that the hole you start on is just leading the hole above, like that. And you continue missing each hole, so you're in one hole, miss a hole, in the next hole, miss a hole, until all the bottom spokes are in. There's no need to worry about their positions, because they'll find their relevant holes in the rim when we come to that in a minute. You'll notice when you look at the rim that the dimples point to the left and the right alternately. It's now time to fit the rim to the inner spokes, so I lift the hub off the spindle and place it on the bench. Pick up the rim and find the appropriate dimple that's pointing upwards. The spokes drop into place quite easily and they'll line up with the relative dimple that's pointing upwards towards the spoke. Then you place that one nipple on to hold it in place, grab another spoke, miss 3 holes and put it in the 4th hole, which should also be pointing upwards. Then you miss another 3 holes and put it in the next 4th hole and continue until all the 10 inner spokes are in on that side. Then what you do then is you rotate the hub tight, putting the spokes tight into the rim and put on one spoke from the outer spokes, and that holds it in position while you do the other side. And here you can see the one outer spoke. It misses 1 hole on the hub and 1 hole on the rim and should produce an X form. With the wheel turned over, I'll pick up the inner spoke on this side, rotate it round until it hits the rim, and you'll see that it lines up with a dimple pointing straight for it, and then you put the nipple on. And just repeat this process 10 times until all the spokes are in. At this point in the build, I'm only concerned about holding the spokes in place, so the nipples are randomly screwed on several turns only at this stage. With the inner spokes in place on both sides and 1 outer spoke, the next stage is to put the wheel back onto its spindle and fit all the outer spokes. I like this part of the build. The spokes just drop into place. You fill in the middle hole on the hub, drop it onto the rim, and you'll see the dimple that it lines up with the miss 1, miss 3 principle. With all the outer spokes in on this one side, I go around and put on all the nipples. Well, that's all the outer spokes in and the inner spokes on one side, so that side's effectively finished. So now I turn the wheel over and place in the remaining outer spokes. The spokes drop down naturally into position and line up with a dimple. So with all the outer spokes in place, I go around and fit all the nipples, tightening them up roughly by hand. With all the spokes in the wheel, it's now time to synchronise the nipples, so I use a screwdriver and screw all the nipples down until you just clear the thread, so no thread is visible on the spoke. And this is done for every spoke on the wheel. At that point, it should run relatively true. And here you can see it spins great. It is out a little bit, but not much. Maybe 2mm or more, that's all. But we can soon straighten it out in a minute by gradually tightening up the spokes one at a time until they all get a similar tension. And then you adjust them by pulling up where it's low and pulling down where it's high until the wheel is centralised between the hub. It's really good fun straightening the wheel. It's really addictive. You keep tweaking the spokes to tighten the wheel up. If the rim's low, you tighten the spoke to pull it up. If the rim's high, you loosen the spoke and tighten the spoke on the opposite side to pull it down. And you keep repeating this procedure until the rim is not buckled or egged, as they say, running up and down radially. It's really difficult to get old rims exactly true, but you can get them pretty good within 0.5 mm or so. So with the rim true, I then check with 2 steel rules that the hub is in the centre of the rim on the Z1 by just looking at the gap between the edges of the spokes where they bend over, and they're exactly the same. To my little Charlie Weaver bartender, he's really pleased and has to have a little drink. To check I've got all the spokes evenly tensioned, I tap them with a screwdriver and listen to the tone they make. A high-pitched tone is tight and a low-pitched tone is loose. And as you can hear, they're all pretty much the same, with just the odd one or two that are slightly low. So I'll give those a gentle tweak with my spoke key, just to bring them into tune. And here's a slightly low one here. You can see the difference. So I just literally give it a quarter of a turn with the key, tap it again, and it's the same. Perfect. So that's that wheel done. I hope it's the post. I've been waiting for some parts from Z-Power. Oh, no, it's from YouTube. Wow, let's go and see what this might be. I rush back in the garage and get my Swiss Army knife to open the package. Inside, there's a really cool letter addressed to me saying congratulations on achieving 100,000 subscribers. And underneath is the silver plaque. It is so cool. I'm well pleased with that. With my plaque safely back in the house, let's get on with the front wheel build. The front wheel was done in a very similar manner as the back. So the first thing I do is place all the inner spokes in on one side of the hub. With the first 10 inner spokes in, I proceed to fit the other 10, starting with the leading hole on the opposite side, pushing up from underneath. And then repeat this, missing one hole until all the 10 spokes are in. I then line up one of the top spokes with a dimple that's pointing up, and repeat that with all the other spokes in the top, and the bottom one's pointing up into a dimple that's pointing down, until all the inner spokes are in place and the wheel runs relatively freely. Then it's just a straightforward case of fitting the outer spokes and lining them up with the dimples. With all the outer and inner spokes in on that side of the wheel, I turn the wheel over in the vise, gripping on the spindle again in soft jaws, then start putting in the other side outer spokes. And what you do, you just lean it across onto the rim. Lean it one way, doesn't line up with any dimples. Lean it the other way and you'll find the dimple it lines up with. There's only one that it'll fit in. And you repeat this for the rest of the 10 spokes until you've got all the spokes in the wheel. Then go around with a screwdriver as we did on the rear wheel and tighten up the nipples so all the threads disappear from the spokes. With the nipples all tightened down evenly, I then true the wheel like I explained for the rear, and then check the disc flange mounting surface is flush with the side of the rim with my steel rule, which it is on both sides, which is absolutely perfect. I'm well pleased with that. Don't get too excited yet, Charlie. I've just realised I forgot to buy the inner tubes and the bolts that secure the tyres to the rims, so I'll have to ride out to the local motorbike shop on my Yamaha YL1 to pick some up. And this is my 1967 Yamaha YL1 100cc twin. It's a great little bike. I've ridden this bike 500 miles in one day. It's just so nice to ride. Well, I'm back with the inner tubes, but it is so cold. I need to warm up my hands, so I turn on the barbecue and give them a good old warm. It's so nice, absolutely perfect for the job on a cold day. With my hands nice and warm, I can smell the smell of cakes cooking in the kitchen, so I pop in to have a look, and Tracy's been cooking some lovely cupcakes, so I pinch one and go back out in the garage. It was so nice. There's two security bolts on the rear wheel of a Kawasaki Z1, and they fit underneath the rim tape and going through the holes that are opposite each other. And always check that they go in and out freely before you put the tyre on. Before fitting the tyre, make sure the direction of arrow is rotating the correct way for the rear wheel. Then I use some soapy water to lubricate the bead. So now I place the tyre over the wheel, pushing down the outer side of the bead to go underneath the tyre security bolt until it pops in place nicely. Then, using my tyre lever, I gently go around the tyre until it pops over the bead. I then turn the wheel over and force the tyre over the second security bolt using my tyre lever. I use a bit of rag to protect the rim. You just lift the tyre up and it pops down into place, and that's great. I find this the tricky bit now, fitting the inner tube, but put a tiny bit of air in first, not too much, just a little bit to give it some shape. And you have to poke it into the tyre above the rim, force it all the way around, but also line up the valve and put that through the hole. So what I do straight away is put the nut on so that I don't lose the valve up inside the tyre, which can be really frustrating when the tyre's nearly on. Starting at one security bolt, I use my tyre lever to force the tyre over the rim, holding it in place with my knee, and gently going around the wheel until the tyre's on, finishing at a security bolt. With the tyre on, I check that both the security bolts are free by pushing them up with my thumb and seeing that they go in and out freely. I then pump up the tyre to about 35 psi until the tyre pops up onto the rim nicely, and then set it to the recommended pressure. Finally tightening both the security bolts tight with a ring spanner. And here's the two wheels fitted back into the frame. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks so much to everyone that's subscribed, allowing me to achieve my 100,000 subscribers award. I'm well chuffed and really pleased, and thank you all so much. And there's more videos to come soon, so keep watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you. Hello? Hello? Oh, that's great. Oh, so you've subscribed to my channel so you can keep an eye on me? Okay, that's fine then. Bye, Greta.